Welcome to the online lectures for software engineering. In today's class, we'll be discussing scenario-based modeling. Now, what is a scenario? A scenario is a particular situation. So, such a scenario-based modeling, this scenario-based modeling, it is going to capture the details of the system from the outside view. View from outside. Now, view from outside, this can be narrated by the user by making use of specific examples. So within the scenario based modeling, the first technique is within this you're going to call it as scenario based elements. Now this scenario based elements, it can be represented in three different ways, that is a use case, activity and swim lane. Now use case you have already studied. Now within this use case, you're going to make use of a use case diagram. Within the use case diagram, you're going to have this actors. Within the second unit, we have discussed requirement engineering. In that, we have studied use case by making use of a safe home security system. We are going to take that same example. Now within the safe home security system, you're going to make use of use case diagram. This is the same diagram that I have added in here so that it refreshes the specific example. Now this homeowner, he was responsible for arming and disarming the system. That is, he's making use of a safe home security system so that he can safeguard his home when he's outside and when he is inside the home by making use of specific sensors. So he can arm and disarm the system, that he can turn on and turn off the system, access system via the internet. He can view any camera view by making use of the internet, then respond to an alarm event. If an fire alarm was there or a burglary was there, what is going to be the response of the alarm event, whether it is going to call the fire department or the police department or the homeowner is going to come itself. That is the response. Then encounter an error condition. If an error is there, then he is going to check the sensors. Now encountering an error, the situation arises when you have activated the system and not all doors are closed. Suppose you've got doors and window sensors, and if suppose a specific door is not locked, then it is not going to turn on the system. You need to go turn off the window or door, and then you're going to have the sensor activated. Else you've got the system administration. Any configurations within the system or any error, those can be done by the system administration. That is the use case diagram. The next is the activity diagram. Now this activity diagram, it is similar to flowchart diagrams. And the next is swim lane diagram. The swim lane diagram, it is similar to activity diagram, but you're giving some more level of detail. Level of abstraction is your level of detail. So within the use case diagram, the first step is writing a use case. What are you going to write within a use case? Now this use case diagram, it is going to capture the interactions that occur between the producers and the consumers. The producers are your stakeholders and the consumers are your end users. So the communication is going to take place between the producers and consumers of information and the system itself. That is what the information is used and the software that you're developing, the entire system. It is the communication between these two people about these two things. Now, when you're writing a use case, you need to focus upon what to write about. Now, what are you writing about? What specific scenario? Then when you're focusing on what to write about, you're also going to focus on how much you're going to write about that particular scenario and how much detail you're going to give. Now, when you're writing about a particular scenario, you are going to begin developing a set of use cases. Now, when you're developing an entire system, one use case is not enough. You're going to have many use cases so that you can represent the entire system. So you're going to begin with developing a set of use cases. That is, many use cases you're going to design. You're going to list all the functions and activities that are performed by the specific actor. Like within this previous case, you've got different actors. You have got this your list of activities. These oval boxes are your list of activities. These homeowner system administration, these are your actors. So you're going to make a list of all these things. Then the next point is, this can be obtained from a list of required system functions through conversations with stakeholders. Now within this, within the first point I've told you that the communication is going to occur between stakeholder and user. Now with this communication, now with this all this written points, you can obtain the list of functions, activities that need to be performed and embedded within the use case. So there's the first step, written use cases. Now there's a diagram, a preliminary use case. That there's a basic use case diagram for the safe home system. Now this homeowner, he is responsible for accessing the camera surveillance via the internet, configuring the safe home system parameters. That is, he can either select the away function or the stay function. Away means he's going out of the house. All the in-house sensors and the outhouse sensors, they will be activated. When he's staying within the house, only the perimeter sensors are going to be activated. That is, any movement outside the house, that will be activated. Then setting alarms, any alarms for fire, you can set alarms for fire or any burglary, or even theft. So you can set alarms for any of the different scenarios. There's a preliminary use case. Then the next one is developing an activity diagram. Now the first phase for use case, we have already studied the use case diagram. The second one is developing an activity diagram. Now this activity diagram, it is similar to flowchart. An activity diagram uses rounded rectangles. Now we have already seen this. Rounded rectangle means you're not going to have sharp ends. You're going to have this. One second. So it is not going to have any sharp ends. These are going to have these rounded ends. That is, this represents an activity. Now arrows to represent the flow of the system. Now within flowchart diagram, you see that the flow from one activity to another activity, you can have a decision box. The same thing is going to be there within the activity diagram. Decision diamonds to depict a branching decision. Now these decision boxes are used for decisions, and solid horizontal lines to indicate parallel activities are occurring. Now that is called as a synchronization bar. You're going to have a thick line. This is called as your synchronization bar. That is, multiple activities are occurring in parallel. That can be shown by making use of the synchronization bar. So this is your developing activity diagram. This is the basics of activity diagram. Now we'll see an example for activity diagram. Now this activity diagram is for accessing the camera surveillance via the internet by making use of the same safe home security system. Now the first phase, it is the starting phase. Now the start is represented by a circle. Now the first step is enter the password and the user ID. You're going to enter the user ID and password. If it is a valid password, you can access the next function. The next is invalid password. Now for invalid password, you can set some amount of retries. That is, you can have 2 reattempts or 3 reattempts. Based upon that, you will be given a new page to enter the email ID and password. So if you've entered an invalid password, you can have a prompt for re-entry, and this is done by the decision box. Now this can be for 3 tries or 2 tries. Based upon what you have said, you can enter the password. After that, if you are unable to set, then it is going to stop the function. No input tries remain. Now if you've entered the correct email ID, the correct username and password, you can select the surveillance. Now within the surveillance, that is, the different cameras are there. Now as this activity diagram is for accessing the camera, so we are going to focus upon the camera details only. You're going to select the surveillance. Now when you have selected surveillance, you're going to have 2 views. You've got the thumbnail view or select a specific camera view. Now within a thumbnail view, what are you going to have? Within an entire box, you're going to have all the cameras are going to be there, and they are going to be represented as their thumbnails, only like a small picture. Those are your thumbnails. Whereas a selected camera icon, if suppose you have selected this particular camera icon, this is going to be zoomed and that is going to be shown upon the screen. So for the decision box, if you selected thumbnail view, it is going to show you a thumbnail view, this one. Whereas for selected camera view, you're going to have this entire thing. Now after this task, view camera output in labeled window. This is going to be shown in the entire window, or this entire window is going to select one camera view. After that, prompt for another view. That is, if suppose you want to again check another view, once you have selected one view, you want to change the view, you can again go for another view. You're entering a prompt for another view. Now if you want to see another camera, then again your flowchart diagram, that is the control, is going to be passed to this specific decision box, where again you're going to start from thumbnail view or specific camera view. If you just want to see one specific view, you're going to exit the function. So this is an activity diagram for camera surveillance. This is your activity diagram. The next one is swim lane diagram. Now within the swim lane diagram, this is a variation of activity diagram. That is, you're going to have the same activity diagram is going to be there, but you're going to have some more level of detail within the swim lane diagram. Now, as the name says, swim lane diagram. Now, for swimming pools, you've got different lanes for swimming also. That the name is taken from there. Now, this represents the flow of activities that are described by use case at the same time indicated which actor or class has responsibility for the action described by an activity rectangle. Now, this means, now if suppose for a particular instance of time, there are some tasks that are occurring in parallel, or you want to know who is responsible for that specific task. For that particular purpose, you make use of this swim lane diagram. Now let's see this example. Now you've seen this is the same activity diagram. You've split it into different views. Now these views can be taken from the use case diagram. Now within the use case diagram, you had the homeowner, you've got cameras, you've got interfaces. Now within the activity diagram, if you remove these lines, it is the same activity diagram that we have seen, the same view. But in here, you are identifying who is actually doing the job. So this homeowner is entering the user ID and password. The interface job is to check whether it is a valid password or it is an invalid password. After that, selecting major functions, that is selecting the camera views, that is done by the homeowner. Selecting thumbnail view or selecting a specific camera view, this is the responsibility of the homeowner. Homeowner is going to do this job. Now, after that, when you've selected a specific camera view or you've selected a thumbnail view, generating the video output, this is taken from the camera. So this particular task, it is done by the camera itself. Now, this view is going to be shown at the homeowner side. That is, you can see this at the output screen, at the monitor. Then prompt for another view, that is, if you want to check another view within the thumbnail view, you got to check some another area, then that is again done by the interface. The interface is going to give this to, that is again the control is going to go from here, seeing another view, to the homeowner, where he can select the thumbnail view or a specific camera view. So this swim lane diagram, it is going to give you a detailed representation of actually who is performing a specific task, who is responsible. You get to know who is responsible for a specific task. So this is the swim lane diagram for the same camera functions. The next topic is flow oriented modeling. Now within this flow oriented modeling, you're going to make use of diagram that is called as a data flow diagram. Now, as the name suggests, data flow diagram, it is going to tell you how data is flowing from one entity to another entity. Now, this flow oriented model, or if you get the heading as flow oriented elements, it is the same thing. That is why I've added both the side headings so that you people do not get confused. Now, this flow oriented elements, they tell you how information is transformed as it flows through the system. That is, if you give a specific input to the system, now within this, you are going to have some processing done. Based upon that processing, output is going to be generated. So that is what is flow oriented modeling. Now within this, you're going to have the input is accepted. It can be accepted in many forms. That is, you can either have an image, you can have an MP3 file, you can have a audio video file. Different types of input can be taken. Now, if you're taking different types of input, it is going to do the same task. It is going to apply functions to transform it. That is, transforming the function in here means processing of information. Then produce the output in variety forms. Now, if suppose you're making a specific Word file. Now, this Word file can be saved in multiple formats. You can save it in rich text format. You can save it in PDF format, or you can normally save it into the Word format. There are different formats, multiple still are there. So I'm telling you that as the different varieties of output that can be generated. So this is your flow oriented modeling. So within this flow oriented modeling, you're going to make use of data flow model. That is a short form for DFD. Now DFD is a widely used notation. It takes input, process, output view of the system. As I've told you, it is going to take the input, it is going to process that input, and it is going to generate an output. So the data flow model is based upon this input, process, output view. We have seen another model within the previous classes, that was the Hatley-Peerbhai modeling. That was again based upon the same thing, that is input, process, output view. Now within this data model, what is going to happen is the data object. When we have seen data object, these data objects, it can be multiple things. It can be an entity, it can be a thing, it can be a specific role. So these data objects flow into the software, that is going to be your input, and these are transformed into processing elements. That is on, you're going to transform that specific data object into what entity, that is going to be done in here, that is at the processing view. And then a resultant data object is going to flow out of the software. That if suppose you want to convert a specific images into PDF, you want to share your assignment, or you want to share some important questions, what you're going to do, you're going to take snaps, you're going to capture specific images, and then you're going to convert them into a PDF file. So that is your input based output view. Based, you're going to take data object as input, it is going to be transformed, and then the output is going to be in PDF format. Now these data flow diagrams, this can be used to represent a system in different levels of abstraction. Now we are going to study different levels of diagram. You're going to have different levels. Now each level is going to have a details. Based upon the level, you're going to have details. You're going to have, first we're going to start with level 0, then level 1, level 2. Now this can continue until each and every task is simplified. So DFD is refined into greater levels of detail. That is your, it can be level 1, level 2, or level 3. Now within this data flow diagram, we are going to have data objects. Now these objects are going to be represented by labeled arrows. That is your first type of representation. Then any transformations that you are applying, these transformations will be represented by circles, or these circles can also be called as bubbles. Then the next is any external entity, that is, this can be your output screen or sensors, any external entity, this is represented as boxes. So these are the three representations. You're going to have boxes, you are going to have circles or bubbles, and you're going to have labeled arrows. Anything, you can have anything written. So this is your representation: data objects as arrows, transformations as circles, and external entities as boxes. Now within this, you're going to have different levels. Now level 0 DFD, it is going to tell you the basic representation. That is, it is going to give you a brief view of the system. If you go to level 1, level 1 is going to have some more detail. Then level 2 is going to have more detail for a specific task. They are going to be different levels of data flow diagrams. Now these data flow diagrams, this can be refined until you have got the entire system is simplified. Now creating a DFD. Now, when you're creating a DFD, there are specific guidelines that you need to follow while creating a data flow diagram. Now, while you're creating a data flow diagram, the level 0 DFD should depict the software system as a single unit. Now, a single unit means a system as a whole will be represented within the level 0 DFD. The next one is, second point is, primary input and output should be carefully noted. That is, what is the input and what is the output. It should not change. You need to have proper labeling for each input and output. Then the third point is, refinement should begin by isolating candidate process data objects to be represented at next level. Now, refinement means giving the detail. Now, when you're giving this levels, that is when you're changing from level 0 to level 1, when you're refining, what you're going to take, you're going to take one specific process, you're going to isolate it. That is, you're just going to make changes within this. You're going to add detail within this specific process only. If you're making changes within another process, then you're going to isolate that specific process and then you're going to make changes there only. So when you're moving from level 0 to level 1, this specific process need to be isolated and then changes need to be made. Then the next one is, all arrows and bubbles should be labeled with meaningful name. That is, if you're giving a specific arrow or you're adding a bubble, if you're having no name to it, it is not the case. You should every time have it labeled. All the arrows and all the circles need to be labeled with proper names should be given. Then the next one is, information flow continuity must be maintained from level to level. That is, how the information is flowing. If suppose the information is flowing from one bubble to another bubble, or from one external entity to another bubble, that is from external entity to a particular bubble, then this information flow needs to be maintained. That is, in another case, you cannot just remove this arrow. This arrow need to be present. Then one bubble at a time should be refined. When you're refining from level 0 to level 1, you're going to focus upon one bubble at one specific time. Now, these are a few DFD symbols. Now, these DFD symbols, now there are two types of representation. One was done by Jordan in code, and the second one was done by Gain in SAS. So that is, you can use either of the representation. You cannot mix them. You can either use this first representation or you can use this second representation. Input and output are going to be represented by boxes. Process and functions are going to be represented by circles. Now this in here, you're going to have a same like an activity, but a line like a class. Then database files, you're going to have two lines within the first representation. And the second one is, you're going to have this rounded corner rectangle with a line. Then data flow is represented by a arrow in both the cases. So these are your DFD symbols. Now, this is the context level diagram for safe home security system. We are taking the same example again. This is also called as your level 0 DFD. Now, level 0 DFD represents the system as a whole, as one unit. That is our system as a whole. Now, within the system, we are going the control panel and sensors are going to give input to the safe home security software, and the output is generated to the control panel display, alarms, and the telephone line. Now this control panel, within this control panel, that is the square boxes. What are these square boxes? The square boxes are your external entities. External entity is your square box. What were the labeled arrows? These labeled arrows are your data objects. Then what are circles? Circle or bubble. This is your transformation. So these are the representation. Now this control panel is going to generate this user command, and that is taken as input for the safe home system. And the sensor, that is, you're going to have, you can have fire sensors, you can have door sensors, you can have window sensors, or you can have perimeter sensors. different sensors are going to be giving input to the safe home software based upon the input that is generated by the control panel. Now the input for control panel, it can be the stay function or the away function. This can take input as stay or away, and the sensors are going to take input from fire sensors, door, window, or perimeter sensors. Any movement within this can be taken as input from the safe home system. Now the output that is displayed, this information is displayed at the control panel display, that is your screen. It is going to be displayed upon the screen. This is your displaying the information. Then alarm type, if you're setting some specific alarm for any type of changes within the sensors, those alarms are going to be played. The sound is going to be played in here. Then telephone line, that is suppose for the fire sensor, they're going to feed a number for the fire department. For any burglary, you can have a number for the police department, and you can also have only a number that is for the homeowner, that is the contact should be made to the homeowner. So this is the representation of system as one whole. Now the next is level 1 DFD. Now within this level 1 DFD, what we are going to refine? We are going to refine now within the guidelines. The sixth guideline was you're going to refine one bubble at a time should be refined. Refine one bubble at a specific time. So within this, the previous bubble, this was the safe home software. So you're going to refine this safe home software. Now within the safe home software, now the safe home software is going to be refined into 6 different boxes. Now within this, when you want to transfer it into a level 1 DFD, what you need to do? Now when you're transforming from level 0 to level 1 DFD, what you're going to do, you're going to apply a grammatical parse. Now this grammatical parse, it is going to be applied on the narrative. Now this particular narrative, where you're going to find this narrative is found when the end user and the stakeholders are communicating. So what you're going to do, you're going to have, whenever you have a meeting, you're going to have all the meeting recorded. So you're going to take that narrative. On this specific narrative, you're going to perform a grammatical parse. Now within this grammatical parse, this means that you're going to identify the different nouns and you're going to identify verbs. Now you're also going to identify any noun phrase and any verb phrases. Those are also going to be identified. Now which narrative we are talking about? We are again considering the safe home security narrative. Now on that narrative, you're going to identify all the nouns and verbs. Now when you're identifying all the nouns and verbs, now how you're going to transform this? Now all your verbs are going to be converted into bubbles. Then all your nouns are going to be converted into boxes. Now what are boxes? External entities. Then any data or any control information, this is converted into arrows. Sorry, not control information. It is going to be control objects. These are going to be represented by arrows. Then data stores can be represented by double lines. Data store means where you're storing the data. That is your double lines. Now you're going to, this all is done by applying the grammatical parts on the narrative. Now, after that, when you have identified all the verbs converted into bubbles, nouns into boxes, data objects into arrows, and data stores into double lines, what you need to maintain is that any information flow, the information flow, this should be maintained from level 0 to level 1. That is how information, if data is entering into a specific entity, then that need to be maintained. We'll come back to the diagram. Now, within this, by applying the grammatical pass, first the control panel is going to issue the first command as interacting with the user. Now, interacting with the user means he can enter a password, processing the password. Now, when you have entered the password, it is going to check whether your password is valid or it is invalid password. Then when you're interacting with the user, the first one we have seen is entering the password. Now, when you've entered the password, it can display the message in status of your, this can be displayed at the control panel for the first task. Then the next task is when you're interacting with the user, you can activate or deactivate the system. That is your second task. Now this is going to happen after you enter the password. That is why I've started from the below. When you enter the password, then only you can make changes within the safe home security software. Now when you've activated or deactivated system, that is you've armed the system. That is where you've selected stay function or away function, or you've completely deactivated the safe home security. Now activating and deactivating system, then this message activation, now A and D, A stands for activate and D stands for deactivate. This activate and deactivate message is going to be displayed again on the control panel. The second input is also displayed in here. Then the third task here is configuring the system. That is if you're making any changes within the software. Now, if you're making any changes within the software, that is if you are resetting the password, suppose. So that is again going to be made, those changes can be made within the database. Now, these double lines are your data stores. Data stores are represented by double lines. So this becomes your data source, that is your configuration information. Now, if you want to change the password, again this can be done at the configuration information, or if you want to see any camera view, or if you want to check any sensors, that is whether all the sensors are working or not, you're checking the camera functions, that data can be fetched from this monitor sensor. That is any changes within the configuration system that you're making, this is done at the monitoring sensor. When you've made those changes at the monitor sensor, you can, this message is displayed, that is sensor information is made within this bubble, that is display the message and status. In the control panel, you can say that those specific changes are made, that message can be displayed. Or if you're making changes within any alarm system, that can be displayed by ringing the alarm voice. If you're adding any telephone number lines, if you're adding the fire department number or the police department number, again that change is made within this. And another method, now this configuration information, it was taken from the monitor sensors and that was displayed at messages. Whereas if you are not making any changes within the monitoring sensors, then directly that message will be displayed, that is display message and status. So these are the different, we are adding 6 different processes. What is done in, you've added 6 process for the safe home security software. Then the last one, that is sensors. For sensors, you have added the monitor sensors. Now this third task is in collaboration with the sensor. Now this are your sensor status. Sensor status is given at the monitor sensors, and then that message is displayed at either of the 3 external entities. So this is your level 1 DFD. This level 1 DFD is achieved by performing a grammatical parse upon the narrative of the safe home security. That is the meeting narrative. Then again, within the next is level 2 DFD. Now within the level 2 DFD, you're further refining the diagram, further refining it into a lower level, that are adding more information. Now this refinement can continue until each bubble performs a specific simple task. Now for this particular level 2, we are making changes within the monitor sensor, that is this particular monitor sensors, you're making changes in here. So within the monitor sensors, these sensors are going to read information, reading the sensors. Now reading the sensors means they are checking whether all the sensors are active, that is reading your sensors. Now when you're reading the sensors, now each sensor is going to have its own specific ID and specific type of sensor. Now this information will be stored within the access against setup. Now if suppose there is any access against setup, means if suppose you have selected the away function. Now within this away function, all sensors will be activated. Now all sensors are activated means no person is in the house. If any person tries to intrude within the house, that is called as your access against setup. That is, no one is in the house, but someone is trying to enter the house without entering a valid password. For that, you're going to have a phone number can be dialed. Now this phone number, this can be for the homeowner, the fire department, or the police department. It is going to dial the number. Now this access against setup, this can be checked within the configuration information. This away or all sensors are activated, this information is stored within the database. Now this information is displayed at the control panel. Now we have seen that this information can be accessed via the internet by the homeowner. So this is also going to be displayed. Format for display, in what format you're displaying this particular file. For that particular camera, you can have detailed view, or you can have thumbnail view for the different areas that are under attack. Then alarm data, some type of alarm, that is some type of bell will be played so that the burglars might move away, or this fire alarm might have some specific fire alarm ringing so that the neighbors can also come and blow out the fire. So this is how you're refining from one level to another level. Now this refinement is going to continue until each and every bubble performs a simple task. Now within this, now we have studied data flow diagrams, right? Now within the data flow diagram, the name says that how data is flowing from one entity to another entity. Here we have seen that here it is taking the input, then it is generating the output. So we have seen how data is flowing. Whereas within this control flow, we are going to see how control is going to flow from one entity to for another entity. Now for many applications, DFDs are necessary. For multiple applications, the data flow diagrams are very necessary because you need to know how data is flowing from one entity to another entity. Now this data flow diagram, they give you an insight within the software. That is, what are the different tasks that are being performed, and you get to know what are the different software requirements. So now this is for majority of apps. Then a large class of applications, again that is a whole bunch of another applications, you can say that is called as your a large class of applications. Now these large class of applications, these are driven by specific type of event. That is, when a specific event take place, then it is going to, that is for the specific event. If suppose a burglar tries to enter, then the sensor is going to activate that via the sensor, and then the alarm is going to be generated. So this is generated by events. Now these events are going to produce any control information. Now when these specific applications are producing this control information, for such type of applications, we make use of control flow modeling. For these type of applications, we are making use of control flow modeling so that we get to know how the control is flowing within the entire software. Now there are again guidelines for control flow. Now the guidelines are, first, when you need to identify how control is flowing, you need to have an entire overview of what the system is and what are the tasks that it is performing. So for that, first you need to list all processes that are performed by the software. Now all processes means all the different tasks, all the bubbles, you can say all the bubbles that are performed by the software. You need to have a list of all of them, or within the use case, you can say all the use cases. List of the interrupt condition, that is when the alarm is going to ring, when the telephone is, when you're going to dial the number, that needs to be identified. Then list of all activities that are performed by operator or actor. That is, you can have one actor or you can have many actors. So what are the different features that are performed by specific actors or by many actors? You need to have list of all the activities. Then any data conditions that are given, you need to have a list of all that. Then review all control item. Now as you're focusing on control flow, how you're accessing the control items, the specific input and output for controlling the information, that is your, if suppose, the configuration. the configuration setting, it is how you're controlling the system. So review all the configurations, that is the input and outputs. Describe behavior of the system by identifying its states. Now within the states means what are the different states in state chart diagram. Now by occurrence of a particular event, the state is going to change. So you need to identify the behavior of the system and how the state is going to change. That is, if suppose the system is in idle state. Now if suppose an intruder tries to enter, it is going to act, it is going to display that information on the control panel, and it is going to generate an alarm, and it is going to make a call. So these are the three events that are occurring by any changes within the sensor data access without the permission. Then focus on possible omissions, a very common error in specifying control. That if suppose if you made a list of functions in here, if you want to remove any functions, those omissions need to be displayed. Now if suppose you've listed that you're going to remove one condition, but it is still present in the software, it is going to present in many errors within the software. So these are the guidelines for control flow. Now within the control flow, we've got control specifications. And within this control specification, CSPEC is control specifications. Now within this control specification, it is going to describe the behavior of system in two ways. The first way is the state diagram. Now within the state diagram is the sequential specification of the behavior. There's the first type of representation. Second one is it is going to make use of activation table. Now what is activation table? Activation table is a combinatorial specification of the behavior. Now within the state chart diagram, you're going to have within a sequence, that is first step is happening, then the second, then the third, that is the state diagram. Whereas activation table is, it is going to have which particular event has triggered different behavior. That is within this particular diagram, we have got three events. We've got the control panel, the alarm, and telephone line. This is a combinatorial representation. Now, when the software engineer sees this control specification diagram, he can identify any bugs or holes within the software behavior. Any errors can be encountered when you make use of the state chart diagram and the activation table to develop the data flow and the control flow diagrams. Now there's an example of state chart diagram. There's a state chart diagram for order management system. Now within this order management system, the state chart diagram is similar. Now it is going to make use of the same thing as the activity diagram. This is your start state. This is the stop state. Now the first state is, it is in idle state. Now when it is an idle state means you're not doing anything. When you've started, you have not done anything. That is called as your initial state. Now this ideal state is going when you order a specific item, send order request. That is, you want to purchase a particular item, you've opened Amazon, Flipkart, anything, then you have send an order request that you want to order a specific item. Now if suppose you've ordered a specific item, the payment has failed, that is your abnormal exit. That is, it needs to stop. Without payment, your order is not going to be dispatched. So that is an abnormal exit. That is your final state. It is going to stop. Now, if you have made the payment, when the payment is done, the state is going to change. Now you can see here from idle state, it has changed to send order request. Then the next is select normal or specific order. If suppose you've got this Prime membership, so that is a special order. Prime order, it is going to deliver within a day. So you've selected the Prime, then order confirmation. You're going to confirm the address. After this, that is done, your order will be dispatched. When your order is dispatched, your complete payment is done. Then this is going, the transaction is completed. It is your state diagram is completed. That is from initial to final state. These different boxes are the changing of event. That is your transitions. Here this is also your transition. So this is only for order management. Now this is going to, you're not going to say that still the order is not reached, so you're not going to end it. So this particular State chart diagram, it is only for order management system. Now when your parcel reaching yourself, that for that particular purpose, you need to draw another state chart diagram. Now the state chart diagram, this is for safe home security system. You can reset the password. If the system is idle, means you have selected the away the stay function. You can make any changes on the alarm or monitoring the system status. Those changes can be made. The next one is process specification, that is PSPEC. Now, when you focus on process specification, this process specification is that is you're going to describe all the processes that appear at the final level of refinement. That is all the bubbles. Now, those bubbles are your detail that you've given for each process. This is your details. So by this PSPEC, this is going to include the narrative test on which we have performed the grammatical parts when you've converted the level 0 to level 1. You've made use of this narrative part. Then the program design language, that is which programming language you've used. You're going to describe that within the process specification. Then description of each process, algorithm, that is what algorithm you've used for processing the data. Then if any mathematical equations you've used, any tables or diagrams, charts, models, what you've used, that are going to be included within the process specifications. Now, when you make use of this process specifications for each bubble that you have refined within this flow model, this is going to make a list of the mini specifications. Now, this mini specification, that is a list of activities that need to be embedded within the software. Now, these mini specifications, they act as a guide for designing the software components. And these components are in turn going to implement the process. So in overview for today's class, we have studied scenario-based modeling. Now within scenario-based modeling, we have studied 3 types of representations. So in scenario-based modeling, this can be represented by either making use of use cases or by making use of activity diagrams and by making use of swim lane diagrams. Now, after the scenario-based modeling, we have seen flow-oriented modeling. Now, within this flow-oriented modeling, we have seen the data flow diagram. Within this data flow diagram, we had representation, that is each data object was represented by arrows. Any transformations, they were represented by bubbles. And any external entity, it was represented by boxes. So these are the 3 types of representations that were used for level 0 DFD. Then after that, we have converted into level 1 DFD. Now for converting it into level 1 DFD, what we have done, we have performed a grammatical parts upon the narrative of safe home security system. For this narrative, what we have done, we have identified the different nouns. We have converted the nouns into boxes. We've converted verbs into bubbles or circles. You have converted any data and control objects as arrows and data store as your double lines. Now, when you convert it from level 0 to level 1, we have maintained the information flow. That is, the input and output, they are going to remain the same. After that, when we have converted it into Level 2 DFD, what we have done, we are refining one bubble at one particular time. Now, this refinement is going to continue until each and every bubble, it performs a simple task. So this is the end of today's class. In the next class, we'll be discussing class-based modeling. Now, by making this, when you're studying all the scenario-based modeling, flow-based modeling, the lab is going to become very simple to execute.